wherever you are in this wonderful world of ours, on behalf of the Leadership Simply Institute, welcome. Welcome to Chat Time with me, Nev Garnham. May I remind you and reassure you that you are far better than you think you are. No matter what you've done or what you haven't done, you can accomplish much, much more than perhaps at this point in time you believe possible. You are far better than you think you are. You are far better and more capable of achieving things that perhaps now you're not so confident about. Today for Chat Time, I'd like to talk about people. Now, what kind of gives me the right to talk about people skills? Have my dealings always been perfect? No, of course they haven't. Many times my dealings could have been better in dealing with people, whether it's staff or other colleagues or people that I know. Always one can improve how one deals. Have I ignored people when I shouldn't? Yes, of course I have. And that's unfortunate. Sometimes it was just inadvertently that I ignored them or appeared to ignore them. So, no, that's a problem that I've had to deal with at times. Have I always achieved the outcomes that I've sought? Well, no, not always. But whether I've tried very, very hard or tried at an ordinary level, the outcomes haven't always been achieved. Have I achieved more than I thought possible? Well, sometimes I think that was the case. And that's likely to be the case for anyone else who has tried. So what thoughts can I offer about this topic of people skills? Well, what I can attempt to offer to you is 50 plus years of practical observations and experience in relation to dealing with people. So can I just urge you, first of all, to never underestimate your ability to do or achieve what you want. Never underestimate the abilities of other people if they're given a chance to do and achieve what they want, to fit within what you're trying to do, or independently of you to do what they want to do. And the importance of dealing with people, it should never be underestimated. It is absolutely so critical to recognise the importance of dealing with people. And I'd like to suggest to you that you make sure you never underestimate the maxim: all products, services, well, by that, I'd remind you that all products and services are delivered to people, for people, by people. Systems, technology do not deliver. Get that. Never underestimate skills are hard skills, just like through this chat session. Now, some people simply don't get it. They really don't get it. They don't believe that people skills are particularly important. It's just do what I say or do things. I talked about this in my book, but you need to understand that there will be and there are some people who simply don't get the importance of people's skills. Now, it's many derivatives. Often it's spoken about as soft skills. And I've dealt with this in more detail in a blog article in which I've suggested that we should stop calling them soft skills. And in that particular article, I point out that soft skills was created as a term by the US Army in the late 1960s. 50 odd years ago. And it referred to any skill that does not employ the use of machinery. They talked about it as social skills necessary to lead groups, to motivate soldiers and win wars. And those skills had not at that time been catalogued or fully studied. And they possibly still haven't been. But it's not just about winning wars. It's not just about winning in the business environment. It's about actually peaceful endeavours to get things done, to make everything better for everybody on this planet. So I urge you to have a look at that particular blog article and understand what's being spoken about and why soft skills is an often used term that I believe should be abolished, because nobody wants to have soft skills. They want to be getting on with it and doing things that need to be done. Sometimes it's spoken about as EQ, emotional intelligence, the social skills that were spoken about by the US Army. It's sometimes reflected as being the person who can work the room, their crowdability. And we often think that that's, the politicians type way, and that's people skills. Well, maybe, not necessarily. There are people I've heard suggest that the people skills are about the people who are the life of the party. And I don't really agree with that, but it's certainly one of the derivatives that I've heard used. And there are many others that you're likely to have heard when people are trying to talk about what I've spoken or called people skills. I've come across many people, including many project managers, program project managers, who say, that's just the way I am. I just call it the way I see it, and that's it. Go do it my way. Many bosses do the same kind of thing. They're not leaders of people. They simply have their view of how things ought to be done, and that's the way I am. Just go on and get on with it and do it. I call it as I see it, and if you don't like it, that's just too bad. Well, I've seen many instances where that has caused enormous grief in programs, in projects, in getting things done in any organisational endeavour. Now, it's also people who are suggesting it's about getting things done that's needed. And that's true to a very large extent. But you can get things done better and more easily if you employ proper people skills to help you get it done. There's the argument that the boss directs and employees do. I very much disagree with that. Very much of the view that if the person who is trying to be the boss is not realistically part of the team and at a par with the employees, it's not a particularly good situation to be involved with. Now, I've seen instances where in that boss-employee situation, employees have said, I'm just doing as I'm told. And in one instance that comes to mind immediately, I can remember where it cost the organisation more than $1 million because the employees were just doing as they're told. Their boss had been the boss, had directed them, and he didn't understand what was happening. The employees did, but there was little they were able to do about it. And it wasn't until it was too late, and it cost the organisation about $1.25 million extra to achieve the outcomes that were needed. And that was just purely wasted money. Now, the reality is that the absence of people skills has costs. We'll talk about some of those costs. And collaboration involves a significant reduction of ego. There are too many bosses who like their position, who like being the boss, and they've got an ego to match. And that doesn't help them or a team of people around them to achieve what needs to be achieved. Now, what are the sort of costs? It can certainly have toxic family or work environments. It can cause domestic violence risks. It can cause the equivalent of violence in some form in the work environment as well. It can cause absenteeism from work or responsibilities, and that has a cost on getting things done for many organisations. It can cause disrupted health patterns. Lack of sleep can cause accidents. There are other things that can cause disruption of health patterns and absenteeism and so forth that are costly to businesses. It can cause mental distress such that the person can receive or make abusive phone calls or emails, which is very disruptive for getting the things done in an organisation that need to be done. Can also cause great costs associated with self-doubt when things go askew. And it can cause people to have great feelings of inadequacy that lead to inaction on their part. Now, as a senior executive, I went to talk to a specialist engineer on one occasion. As I approached that engineer, he was being abused by a project manager. The project manager has his back to me. The engineer was side on and spotted me. When the project manager saw the engineer glance somewhere else, he recognised that somebody else must have been present. Whether he actually saw me or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he basically settled down slightly, but finished the conversation very quickly and left the engineer. I asked the engineer what the conversation had been about. I also asked him if he wanted me to say or do something about it because I'd heard the abuse. Now, it wasn't that I didn't intend to do something because I had fully decided that I was going to say and do something about it. I was going to talk to the engineer's boss and to the project manager's boss because they were my peers. I wasn't going to let it go, but I wanted to see how the engineer would react to it. And he said, no, there's no use doing anything because that particular guy, he does it all the time. And I was well aware that this particular project manager had very much a preference for that kind of behaviour because he'd done similar things to my staff in the past. Now, yes, okay, there was the situation that this particular project manager had type 2 diabetes. And if his medications got out of sync, he got quite erratic in his behaviours. But that can be a reality. It can also be an excuse. And I went down the pathway of talking to the engineer's manager and to the project manager's manager, who also was a type 2 diabetes sufferer. And between us all, we agreed that we were going to try and help that project manager to change his behaviours. Whether that happened permanently is debatable, but anyway, it was a problem. So I asked this engineer how he dealt with it, and he reached into the bottom drawer of his desk and he pulled out a piece of paper on which he had written a summary of categories. Now, I'm not going to guarantee to you that what I show you on the next screen is exactly what he had written down, but I did read everything that he had handwritten on this page. And broadly speaking, this was what he put together. It categorized 5 categories of how people dealt with him and what that meant and what action he took. Now, I'm not going to try and go through all of these in finer detail, but you can get the point here that if he was treated very well, then he went out of his way to help. He'd do the work immediately if it's possible, or as soon as possible. He'd give the work maximum priority. There were even times where he'd take home the work to finish it if he was under pressure, and often he was under pressure. And this was a very specialist engineering role that he was in. If he was treated appallingly in category 5, depending on how appallingly or treated poorly too often, the request would either go halfway or some fraction down in his in tray to look at again later, or it would go to the bottom of the in tray. Now, am I suggesting to you that that's the best type of solution, is the optimum one for this situation? No way. I'm not suggesting that. But this is often how people deal with these situations. They don't have it categorized in the way this engineer did, but in their mind, they've got it categorized. They will help the people who help them. So I'm not recommending this as a solution in any way, because it helps to continue, foster or preserve the toxic environment, which is not a good solution. Now, a recent instance that I saw on social media, after work hours were over, a boss wrote to an employee, and if you see the time there, this is 7:45, or a bit after 7:45 at night time, and he's written to him saying, "Good evening. I was reviewing the camera from our shift today and noticed you were sitting on the stool for the majority of your shift. This is completely unacceptable behaviour, and we will discuss it tomorrow before shift." Now, the employee wrote back and said that he'd cleared it and that he had 2 broken bones in his foot. Aside from that, he packed 240 plus boxes for 12 hours straight. He's not sure if he's aware that there's a ranking list. So he said, "Just to be clear, my impressive performance was overshadowed by the fact that I wasn't uncomfortable enough while doing it." Now, the supervisor comes back, "I'm really not appreciating your attitude. You could have just said the first part where it was cleared with another lead instead of being disrespectful. This type of behaviour isn't going to get you anywhere here." And of course, that got the ire of the employee considerably. So I'll leave it to you to read his response. And he ends up that paragraph, "I'm not concerned about going anywhere there. It's a toxic environment with ignorant people at the helm. I won't be in tomorrow or ever again." And of course, the supervisor goes to, we don't need to rush to you leaving, let's talk in the morning and we can sort this out. To which the employee says, no thanks, have a good life. And then on social media, he shared, quit my job last night, it was nice to be home to make the kids breakfast and take them to school today, off to hunt for a new opportunity. Wish me luck. Now there's the source of where I started. Is all too much the situation across many enterprises of the world. The supervisor in this situation didn't have adequate people skills. And it's clear over and over again that people leave bad bosses. They don't leave bad jobs. So, what's my summary of it all? PQ equals IQ plus EQ minus DQ. What on earth does all that mean? Well, PQ is what I call people skills or people ability. There's a need for intelligence, and intelligence may well be around the machinery you're working at or the job you're doing, regardless of whether it's engineering work or legal work or some other kind of work. There are a range of skills that you very well need to do what you've been asked to do or what you've been paid to do in the best possible way. And those are essentially the technical skills. But it's much, much more than what you've studied in any course. It must also include experience, in my view. Now, we also have the emotional things, the social skills, the dealing with people things. So these also are much more than just social adeptness with people. It must include getting things done, because very often people can be good with other people, but it becomes talk fests that do not necessarily get things done. So all right, PQ equals IQ plus EQ minus DQ. You've never heard of DQ? Well, no, of course you haven't, because I made it up. DQ, what I'm talking about, is dualist capacity. Now, whether we like to admit it or not, each and every one of us, on occasions, is dopey. We're bits of dills at times. And when that's the case, we need to be ready to give apologies when we screw up. We need to make it right. We need to give help in getting things done. And we need to defend the people that have been impacted by what we've done. Instead, I would also add, we also must not overlook our own gullibility to believe uncritically what we're told by other people. And that's as much part of our dualness capacity as not reacting well with other people in quite a few situations. So we need to eliminate gender barriers and assumptions, and we've talked about some of those already, and there are more that we will talk about as we go through this series. We need to chase dreams and encourage others to also chase their dreams, to become better people. We need to be, if we're not, we need to become a lifetime learner, a passionately curious lifetime learner. We need to become sensitive to getting things done, not just talking about them, but getting them done. We need to remember everything is delivered to people, for people, by people. In every action and decision you take, remember your humanity and the humanity of the people you are dealing with in any situation. If you expect to receive respect, then give respect. And we need, in all we do to make every possible effort to reduce our dullness behaviours and dullness in our decision making. So, to be an excellent person, it requires perspective. It needs us to be able to discuss, to listen, to connect with other people. It requires us to have the greatest possible respect for other people, even if we disagree with their opinions. Now, if we disagree with their opinions, we need to be able to discuss those. We need to be able to look at them objectively, critically, put them outside of us and take a third-party position to have a look at that opinion as to whether we agree, disagree, or it's just our prejudices talking. We need to be careful with disagreeing with other people, but we don't always have to agree with them. We need, where possible, to build up other people and do what we can to help build them up. We need to in other people to help create other leaders, not followers, other leaders. We need to get people to recognise that they can be a leader, even if at the moment they do not believe that they can be. So leadership is about perspective plus respect plus service to become an excellent person. So our team works on the basis of winning through perspective plus respect plus service to help bring out the full colour of our success, of your success, of people's success, because the ultimate methodology is excellent people. And people skills enhance technical skills and stop profits and careers falling through the cracks in activities. You are what you believe yourself capable of becoming. With our help, you can expect to get there faster. So I'd like to wish you all the very best for your future. If you'd like to contact us, please do so by email, phone, or the address given below. We would certainly love to talk with you and see what we can do to help you become the best person you can possibly become. And if you can get together with some other people, you may well be able to get us to offer you a special deal that will cost you less than what it normally would cost you simply as an individual. So at this point in time, what I'll say is best wishes for your future, and bye for now.